Hi everyone, welcome to my channel if you're new here. Welcome back to my channel if you're a returning viewer or subscriber. Before we begin, I must show you my cat. He's sleeping on the bed. I'm just like hoping and praying that he doesn't leave because I love having him. He's not a very like affectionate cat. He doesn't love a cuddle. So just him existing within my presence, within the same room as me, is quite a special thing, I know. Touch-starved cat parents will understand. Today's video is going to be my TBR for spring. So these are the books I'm hoping to get to within the next 3 months. To be honest with you, while I started off March feeling very inspired to read, dare I say it, I'm suddenly feeling a little bit slumpy. So this TBR is probably not as ambitious as my usual seasonal TBRs are. 8 books is still quite a lot considering that I still want to be kind of mood reading throughout the months of spring. I don't think I'm going to be filming a spring book recs video this year because I filmed one last year and I think that is still kind of up to date enough. So if you want to see that, I'll have it linked down below and also up in the cards. Other than that, without further ado, let's just get into the video. These aren't really in any order. I'm just going to be kind of grabbing the books, seeing what we get. But I do have a good kind of range of genres to show you. So first of all is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is the first book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I just recently finished the series that kind of comes before this one. And because I've had this one on my shelves for I think about a year, I definitely want to be picking up soon, but also while the Caraval trilogy is fresh in my head. For as long as she can remember, Evangeline Fox believed in happily ever after, until she learns that the love of her life is about to marry another and her dreams are shattered. Desperate to stop the wedding and heal her wounded heart, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic but wicked Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that the bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and the Prince of Hearts wants far more from her than she pledged. He has plans for her, plans that will either end the greatest happily ever after ever, or the most exquisite tragedy. This series absolutely took the internet by storm over the past year. I think the 3rd book came out last year and it's been one of the biggest fantasy trilogies in recent times, so I'm very excited to read this one. I've heard that the 1st book and the 2nd book are the best in the series, so I'm hoping that I love it from the get-go. This is also one of my favourite ever covers. I think it's so beautiful, the whole design of the UK covers, so pretty. Reaching for a different vibe here, we have Just Kids by Patti Smith. This is a book that I first put on my April TBR in 2023, so it is very much about time that I get to it. And then I think I put it on my TBR in September, and then I put it on my TBR for autumn kind of overall. So if I don't get to it within the spring season, I will actually be very unimpressed with myself. This is a memoir autobiography kind of book by Patti Smith about her life as a creative living in New York City and her relationship with the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe. For a lot of people, this is like one of their favourite ever books. I'm really hoping that I'll feel the same. I love the whole music world anyway. I love non-fiction, memoirs and autobiographies and things like that, so I think this could be just like a predicted 5-star read. I need to just hurry up and read it, you know. I've been wanting to read it ever since I first bought it, and I think that's almost over a year ago now, which is slightly sickening. Just Kids begins as a love story and ends as an elegy. It serves as a salute it serves as a salute to New York City. I'm gonna have to go and get some water because my throat, why does it sound like I'm losing my voice? 1 second. Okay, we're back and we're armed with a big bottle of water. Okay. Just Kids begins as a love story and ends as an elegy. It serves as a salute to New York City during the late 60s and 70s, and to its rich and poor, its hustlers and hellions. A true fable, it is a portrait of 2 young artists' ascent, prelude to fame. This is going to be great, I can just tell. It's short, it's got amazing writing. I think I'm just going to be hooked from the second I start it, so I've got no excuses not to pick it up. Okay, scary classic. This is on my 2024 TBR, so I really need to get to it at some point across the year. And for some reason, whether it's the cover, whether it's the genre, it's just screaming spring to me. So we have 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is quite a short book. It's only like 400 pages, but I'm told it's one of the most complex, difficult books to read, to get through. And lots of people end up giving up at some point along the way because it's too much for them to kind of comprehend, I guess. I think there's a lot of characters in here. It's also magical realism, so it's not like a kind of dynamic that we're used to reading, because Marquez has kind of created this new world in order to tell his story. I think it's also not linear, despite it following a family. A bunch of reasons why people find this difficult. So I'm kind of wary going into it, but I'm still really excited to read it. I think it could be a really great experience and a really kind of like fulfilling one to come out the other end and to have not ticked it off my bucket list, but to have like achieved something like that. 100 Years of Solitude tells the story of the rise and fall, birth and death of the mythical town of Macondo through the history of the Buendia family. Inventive, amusing, magnetic, sad and alive, with unforgettable men and women, brimming with truth, compassion and a lyrical magic that strikes the soul. A lyrical magic that strikes the soul. This novel is a masterpiece in the art of fiction. See, doesn't that sound like the best thing ever? That sounds so good. If I do manage to kind of like understand what's actually going on, what the heck is actually going on, I think this could be a really good read and one that I'll really enjoy. So I'm excited to see what I think, but yeah, I do want to get to it sometime within spring. There's a video that I want to finish before I start this book, because I do want to film a vlog reading this, and there's a little link between those two videos, so we'll see what happens. I'm also currently reading Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, which is my kind of like major focus in terms of classic books at the moment. So I think I'm gonna have to finish that one before I pick up this. So it might be a few months, it might be kind of like a May read or something like that, but hopefully I'll still get to it. Another fantasy book, we have Belladonna by Adelyn Grace. I was looking at all my fantasy books and I was like, I'm gonna want to read fantasy at some point during the spring season, but none of them are kind of screaming spring to me. I don't know what those like the flowers and the birds or something like that, although it is kind of like about death, so it's not very kind of spring. It's probably more of like an autumn winter book. You know, out of all the fantasies, this one is the one that's kind of like, I'm just kind of drawn to it at the moment, so it's probably a good one to pick up. So we're following Signa Farrow. She's been raised by a stream of guardians, orphaned as a child. When a restless spirit appears claiming she was poisoned, Signa realizes her only remaining relatives could be in grave danger. She enlists the help of surly stable boy to hunt down the killer. But Signa's best chance of uncovering the murderer is an alliance with Death himself. It's crazy. And as the mystery unfurls, Signa realizes that their growing connection may be more irresistible than she dared imagine. So I do believe that this girl falls in love with death. Kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. Deliciously Deadly, that's Stephanie Garber, who we've just mentioned. I have kind of high hopes for this. I think it's also a duology, and it's not very long. It's like 400 pages, something like that, and the font is quite kind of spaced out and big. So I think this could be a fun one whenever I'm in the mood for kind of like a YA fantasy book. Totally different vibe, but also a magical realism book, which is also written by another South American author. We have Near to the Wild Heart by Clarissa Lispector. This is a book that I've been meaning to get to for a very long time. I've been meaning to read Lispector's work for ages too, and I've just never kind of like had a moment to. There's never been a point in my reading life where I'd be like, yep, now's the time. So I think I'm gonna have to force it a little bit, because this is again on my 2024 TBR. Reading a Clarissa Lispector book in general, but this book particularly because this is the one that I've been told to start with, because I own 3 of her works if you didn't already know. This is a very kind of speculative, is that the word? It's a very adventurous, unique style novel. So I think, again, similar to 100 Years of Solitude actually, I might find this one a little bit hard to get into, but I think if I do, I again should really love it, because I've both heard amazing things about Clarissa Lispector's writing and also actually seen incredible quotes from her writing, so should be a really good book as well. Published in Rio de Janeiro in 1943, Near to the Wild Heart introduced Brazil to Hurricane Clarice, an unknown 23-year-old who wrote her first book in a tiny rented room, and then, at the suggestion of a friend, baptized it with the title from Joyce. He was alone, unheeded, near to the wild heart of life. This first novel, the story of the feral, amoral Jemima, announces one of the great careers in 20th century literature. That didn't tell us anything of what this book's actually about, but I'm kind of okay with going into it blindly. I'm so excited to try her work. I have a feeling I'm either going to be completely enamored by it or really feel disconnected, so we'll see how it goes. Time for a water break. Okay, switching vibe up again, just for the fun of it. Heartless by Elsie Silva. This is the second book in the Chestnut Springs series. This is a series of interconnected standalone books, all centered on this family, mostly following the brothers within that family and each of their romances. This book is following, I believe, his eldest sibling, Cade. It's got a bunch of tropes in it. I'm very excited, because if you didn't know this already, I absolutely love the first book, Flawless. It was one of my favorite books of last year. In general, I'm not a fan of contemporary romances. I feel like I'm kind of a little bit fussier, maybe, or just, I don't know. But when they hit, they really hit, and it's so special being able to find one I actually really love. And Flawless is definitely one of those. So that followed Rhett. He was a bull rider, he was the middle brother, and this one's following Cade. Cade is a single father. We met him in the first book, and he has a son. So this book is kind of single dad trope. It's also age gap, because I believe the girl, yeah, she's 13 years younger than him. I think for me, Brett is like the #1 love interest, but I really did like Cade's character, and I'm excited to see how I find him in this. So cute. I love this series and how they're all like pastel colours, and they're gonna look so gorgeous on my shelves. I already own the first 4 books, so I'm very much in need of picking up the second and getting the series rolling again, because I read Flawless back in November, so it's been quite a few months, and I want to kind of read probably the entirety of the series this year, because we do have all 5 books out already. I'm so excited. I honestly could pick this up today, but I'm in the middle of about 50,000 books right now, so it's really not, that would not be a sensible idea. I know for a fact I'm going to want to pick this up soon. Even though I read Flawless in November, I read it in a really kind of like summery atmosphere because I was in Florida at the time. Even though it was there autumn, like over here in the UK, it was like 26, 27 degrees, that kind of weather, and it was stunning to be reading about this kind of like ranch and, you know, all the best vibes in that atmosphere. So as soon as the weather kind of warms up, you best believe, or even not, I'm honestly already so in love with the series that I think that I'm gonna want to pick this up like next week. So definitely on the spring TBR, Heartless by Elsie. And if I enjoy that and I want to just keep the ball rolling, then maybe I'll pick up Powerless, the third book, as well. Going back in time and going back to very much different genre and style of book, we have The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I wasn't sure whether I was going to put this on this list. I actually was not going to until about 15 minutes before I filmed this video, because I went to my bookshelves out in the corridor, which have my classics and historical fiction and non-fiction, that kind of thing, to find 100 Years of Solitude, and I ended up picking up Hobbit because I just saw it sitting there calling to me. It's a standalone, it's a really short 300-page classic. Then other than the Marquez and maybe the Clarice Lispector, we don't have many classics on the list. So this is the one I've decided to place on there. I'm sure you're all familiar, but if you're not, follows Bilbo Baggins, and he gets visited by Gandalf, who's this great wizard with this big grey beard, and he enlists Bilbo to join him and some dwarves on a big journey, a big adventure to complete a bunch of tasks. I'm very familiar with the Hobbit films, I love the Hobbit story in general, and if you've watched my last book haul video, you would know that I've just recently bought the Lord of the Rings series on Audible, and someone on the video told me to start with the Hobbit, so that is where we shall begin. That sounded like I was like about to read a children's story, which is kind of appropriate for this. I actually think this is YA, is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right. Okay, then lastly, last book, book number 8, is one that I'm very excited for, and another fantasy, and a book that I've wanted to read for the past year, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Clarissa Broadbent. This book was originally self-published, but it's recently been published within the UK by an actual publisher. It's by Tor. I think that this first book was published in November, and it's actually the first book in a duology, so its sequel is being published in May. So I want to read this one basically so I can pick up the sequel almost immediately if I decide to continue the series, because I do have the beautiful hardcover edition of this book, which means I've got like a limited time to buy the second book in hardcover as well. This is a book that I'm going to buddy read, so when I pick it up is a little bit dependent on when the person I want to read it with is keen to read it, but we both were thinking about May, maybe April for this book. So exciting, so beautiful. I'll tell you what it's about in a second, but I did want to show you this hardcover. I got it in the Waterstones half price sale at the beginning of the year, and look, wow, so incredible, which means I only paid like £11 for it, which is a great deal. We also have a map, so fun. So it says, human or vampire, the rules of survival are the same. Never trust, never yield, and always guard your heart. Vampires. Are we kidding? That is so exciting. Honestly, I'm still in the stage of life where vampires make me think of Twilight series, so getting more vampire content that's not Twilight and not Dracula, so fun. The Hunger Games meets vampires in this heart-wrenching epic fantasy romance of dark magic and bloodthirsty intrigue. The adopted human daughter of the night-born vampire king, Araya, carved her place in a world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is to enter the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy against the most vicious warriors from all 3 vampire houses. To survive, Araya is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. Everything about... Okay, we love that because I just got completely cut off because the clip I'd been filming was too long, so we do need to continue the synopsis. Okay, hopefully the angle hasn't changed too much. Everything about Rain is dangerous. He is a ruthless vampire, an efficient killer, an enemy to her father's crown, and her greatest competition. Yet what terrifies Araya most of all is that she finds herself strangely drawn to him. But there's no room for compassion in the Kajari, and nothing more deadly than love. This could be so good. This was the book that kind of rivaled Fourth Wing in terms of how many people were reading it, how many people were loving it. It sounds like everything and more. It's kind of like a similar setup to The Cruel Prince in that our main character Araya is a human living within a world that's led by a magical creature. So in The Cruel Prince it was fae, and in this book it's going to be vampires. And then she forms this alliance with this guy, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be so good. I'm very excited for it. Book Talk, Bookster, Booktube, please don't let me down, because I recently read a Book Talk book. Let's just say if it hadn't been a buddy read, I would have DNF'd it like a third of the way through. So not it. But I did like Fourth Wing. I have liked other Book Talk books, so I do have hope for this one. And I do want to get to it in spring, like I said. This book is not really giving spring vibes, but the fact the sequel comes out is the reason why I really want to pick it up. I would love to really fall in love with another fantasy series again. So there we have it. Those are the 8 books that I hope to get to within the spring season, the season of spring. I'm so excited for every single one of these. They're all books that I feel like I could rate quite highly. I'm really, really pleased with all these. Like, I don't look at any of these and I think like there's no possibility it could be a 5-star. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up to let me know that you did. And if you decide to stick around, please subscribe, and then I'll see you in a couple of days for another video. Sending my love to you from here to wherever you may be in the world. Little Win sends his love too. Do you send your love, little boy? He's like, what is even happening right now? I just woke him up from his sleep. Oh gosh. We both send our love. But until my next video, have a lovely rest of your day. Happy reading. Bye bye.